Broadcasting live from the studios of Fox Sports Radio.
Bang, bang, won't stop till we're legends.
Here's Doug Gottlieb.
Who you follow is as important as who you work for many times in the job. So I've occupied what was 3 to 6 East Coast time, 12 to 3 West Coast time, now for 6 years. And if you go back to when I was doing 4 to 7, which is 1 to 4 West Coast time, we're talking a good 10 years now. 10 years, you got your boy. And there was, when I was at CBS Sports Radio, we were not on satellite radio, happened to be on satellite radio. But if you wanted to find me, you could find me. But there still is look, so 3 to 6 East, 4 to 6 East, whatever, 4 to 7, I've been around this time slot. So, but part of what I was able to do the first place was it was a revolving door. You know, they always had a bunch of different shows. They could never get somebody to stabilize it. So we did great in sales there. And it took them a long time to get anywhere near the number which we were hitting sales-wise after I left. And the reason was simply consistency. Like, I like to think that we give you, hey, what's the sports topics of the day? Talk about them, give you opinion, give you good. We had EJ Hinch on last hour. I thought that was a really interesting baseball discussion. Ennis Cantor's going to join us, Brian Scalabrine. We even have Connor Barwin, who just signed with the Giants. Like, we try and get great guests, give you good, strong opinions, hit as many topics, we don't get kind of stuck in what you call survey radio. What's the best college football game of the fall? Want you to call 877-99 on Fox. Like, we want to be better than that. Right? I want to be better than that. But I understand that what I followed initially when I was at ESPN Radio made it real easy for me to go like, hey, you should pay me more. You know why? Look at the numbers now versus what was previous there, knowing that they kind of had a revolving door there, kind of a turnstile there. When I got to CBS Sports Radio, we started from scratch. So of course you're up 1,000,000%. You're up 1,000,000% versus nothing. But then you're competing against yourself in subsequent years, and we did better. Coming here, I know the man who preceded me. This has kind of been a little bit of a revolving door time slot, but the guy who preceded me, like, there was some good, there was some bad. But I also knew that if you could just consistently deliver on the sports topics of the day, and our numbers are way up in comparison to what they were previously. Benefiting from who precedes you is a big thing. A big thing. And I think when Colin left, like, they've seen kind of the opposite of it, right? He was doing so well that anyone who came in would struggle in comparison. Struggle because he was doing so well. Like, yeah, everybody says, I want that time slot. I want to replace him. Like, okay, you got to live up to all of what they've been able to do. Really impressive. I look at Michigan and I listen to a lot of the palaver of fans of Michigan. I listen to some of the rhetoric of people who are on local and national radio and on TV saying that Jim Harbaugh's, I heard Clay Travis say Jim Harbaugh was like the most overhyped coach in the history of college football. And I don't think people take into account not just who preceded him and what was left to him, because it wasn't all bad. But I do think that people don't really understand all of the other things at play and what leads you to be successful. Here's a report. Do we know who asked this question? It's actually a very fair question, and it's actually a very professionally asked question, right? It wasn't a hot seat question. It wasn't a how many games do you have to win to not get fired question. Here was the question. Big Ten Media Day. Jim Harbaugh did not offer up a great answer with what I thought was a really fair and honest question. Take a listen.
You came into Ann Arbor with perhaps the most hype of any coach in the history of the Big Ten, maybe in all of college football. A few years later, you've got a third place, and fourth place finish, and you're 1-5 against Michigan State and Ohio State. What do you have to do this year to demonstrate to the Michigan community that you are on the path to achieving what they hired you to achieve?
Well, the improvement will lead to success, will lead to championships.
Which is a very bland answer, okay? Now, part of the lure to Jim Harbaugh was not just that he would get after it in recruiting, which he has. Obviously, this year was not as good a year. Not just that that he had success elsewhere, because so too had Brady Hoke and Rich Rodriguez, who preceded him. But he was a Michigan man, a former Michigan coach who totally got it, understood what it took. And I find the rewriting of history from Michigan fans, from other Big Ten fans, to be laughable and embarrassing. Brady Hoke was a bad football coach. He was not a good football coach when he's there. Brady Hoke is by all accounts, a great dude. And he had done a good job at Ball State and San Diego State before he got to Michigan. But he took over Michigan, and his first year they went 11-2. Remember, Rich Rodriguez was hated. Rich Rodriguez came over from West Virginia, tried to run a completely different style, completely different system. Lloyd Carr stabbed him in the back 50 times over, and Rich Rodriguez did nothing to endear himself to Lloyd Carr. You had the old longtime head coach that didn't want to retire, that was retired probably a little bit before he wanted to be. And Rich Rodriguez, who was not a Michigan dude, who hired bad defensive coordinators, tried to run the really cute 3-3-5 defense, and it never worked. Rich Rod went 3-9, 5-7, 7-6. Brady Hoke went 11-2 his first year, 8-5, 7-6, 5-7. Never put on a headset. Didn't coach offense, didn't coach defense, just kind of recruited, and the team was sort of a mess. Harbaugh won 20 games his first 2 years. Last year obviously was a disappointment, not just with the 8-5 record and the fourth place finish, but the fact is they lost the Outback Bowl as well. But what's curiously absent is all of the other kind of mitigating factors, right? Mitigating factors. Like, I understand where I was previously, both of those two stops, there wasn't competition from Fox Sports. Fox Sports Radio didn't have Dan Patrick, Colin Cowherd, Clay Travis, and me. So, yeah, it's going to be harder for those people to compete with the numbers that we had there, not just because I don't think they're as good as we are. Not just on air, but in terms of production and leadership and management, but also they're competing against a much more difficult opponent. That's what's happened at Michigan. When Brady Hoke was first at Michigan, Ohio State was going through a coaching change. Remember, Jim Tressel was fired because of he lied about the gold pants and what he knew in Terrell Pryor, et cetera, et cetera. Penn State was going through the end of Joe Paterno and, of course, all the ugliness with the Jerry Sandusky thing. That was during Brady Hoke's run there. Go back and look. Michigan State, who had never in the modern era of football been consistently. You had Mark D'Antoni, he's a good coach. He runs a good program. He's produced a lot of NFL caliber running backs and quarterbacks. The fact is, the big reason that Michigan State was able to win was Penn State was down and Michigan was down. And Ohio State went through a coaching change. Now Harbaugh walks in and Penn State was up and running because of Bill O'Brien and then James Franklin and all the talent that they had. Michigan State has been outstanding in terms of their talent. And of course, they've taken a dive here these past couple of years. Why? Because Penn State and Michigan are just better. And Ohio State's been a dominant program in the league. The opponents are tougher. The schedule has been unrelenting. And until now, Harbaugh hasn't had an elite caliber quarterback. You got Shea Patterson now. And if you think that doesn't matter, simply look at what happened when he was at Stanford. 4-8, 5-7, 8-5, 12-1. Who was the quarterback when he was 12-1? I mean, hell, Josh Johnson, I think was the kid's name. He's a backup quarterback in the NFL when he was at San Diego. Once he got him, he started winning at San Diego. You need a quarterback, you need time, but you also need the perspective of what did you inherit and who are they playing against as opposed to who you're playing against now. The Big Ten has gone from a laughingstock league in big boy football. It was thick-legged and slow and archaic in nature. They had to evolve. So you know what they did? They threw a ton of money at coaches. They went out and got the best of the best of the best. And Wisconsin's good. Nebraska's going to be good with Scott Frost. Penn State is damn good. Michigan State is damn good. Hell, in Northwestern, everybody thinks Pat Fitzgerald's good. But he's competing against the Big Ten. It's a hard deal. So I'm not telling you that you can't have reasonably high expectations with Harbaugh. But if not for the fluke loss to Michigan State, the fluky loss to Ohio State 2 years ago, the idea of being, 1-5 against Michigan State and Ohio State, that goes kind of out the window. The league finishes disappointing, but not the end of the world. 2 years ago, they lost, 3 games by 4 points total? Come on. What are we doing here? And if you're Michigan and you think that it's a coaching problem, it's a Harbaugh problem, here's my question to you. Who is more proven than Harbaugh, who won at San Diego, at Stanford, with the San Francisco 49ers? Who is it? Who's the guy who, if you're going to fire Harbaugh and pay him umpteen millions of dollars to not coach at his alma mater, who's going to be better? Who is a more surefire bet that's going to take that job? My guess is that a lot of the palaver about Harbaugh underachieving comes, frankly, from Big Ten fans, not of Michigan. Because they know it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when they get that quarterback thing figured out and they start winning lots and lots and lots of games. Not if, but when. And to the Michigan fans who suddenly have great expectations, they too forget exactly how, like Lloyd Carr, great coach, right? Awesome coach. Won a national title. What year was that? That was 1999, I think. Right? 2000's the bowl game. Sure. Was the coach for 9 more years, double digits in wins, only 3 more times. Rich Rodriguez, Brady Hoke combined, they were there for 7 years. Double digits in win 1 time. Harbaugh's been there 3 years. He's won double digits twice. They'll be fine. Message board dude that's become Twitter dude that's become screamer on the radio call-in dude. Take a breath. Big Ten's really good. It's really hard. They finally got in their quarterback. Who you follow and who they're competing against is as important as anything else.